Hey there, Mayfield. I'm out here at the garden, front yard garden, near 13th and Hausman. And I decided to make a little video giving an overview of what I'm doing here so that everybody knows that I can send this to anybody within this community who has concerns, thoughts, ideas, whatever. This is the plan. So I like the sunburst design. I've used it in a number of other spaces just because it's visually appealing. It it has good form and function, and so that's why the design. Good curb appeal. Even if I have to walk a couple of steps out of the way for a second, the look is worth it. So the style of gardening I do gives greater yield for less work over time. That having been said, the first couple seasons take the most work, and then you might do 120% the labor for 80% the conventional yield from otherwise conventional methods in your first year. In your second year, 110% for 90%. Third year, you'll be breaking even. And these are like conservative estimates. There are things you can do to speed that up. But generally speaking, gardening is the world's slowest performance art. The number one ingredient to being a good gardener is patience. People see in their minds and know of these great, beautiful gardens, but if you'd seen them the first year or two by the skilled professionals, they wouldn't look anything like that. So you have to have a measure of patience when beginning it, and that includes managing the expectations of your community, which is why I'm making this video. So I'm doing a couple things with this sunburst design that I have not yet done anywhere else, but this is a really great opportunity to do it. First of all, I want to go 3D with it. So the sunburst isn't just going to be a flat sunburst, but this center part is going to be basically a hemisphere, right? Half of a sphere. And so it'll look like the sun's coming out. There'll be yellow and red flowers like marigolds, which are great for bug deterrent, sunflowers, which pull heavy metals up from out of the soil, and other yellows and reds, but then also a little sickle of a crescent of night blooming white flowers. So I'm going to kind of balance that so that during the day it's the sun, and at night it's a moon. So maybe the yellow and reds inside the moon will only be day blooming, right? So, and then all these paths will have the taller stuff to the back and the shorter stuff to the front, which will be different in every season. I will say that three things we're gonna get planted here this winter, and I do it in all my gardens, is garlic, tulips, and winterweed. Garlic needs 9 months. You plant the clove October, go out and plant a whole bunch of get big cloves, like take the biggest cloves out of a reliable garlic and plant those, and maybe every week in October plant like 40 or 50 of them, and you'll be fine. You'll get an 8 to 10 times return on that. It takes 9 months, just like a human baby, and it needs that winter to stratify and become a bulb, right? Hardneck garlic, which I recommend, is winter hardy. Here you can grow both, really, soft neck and hard neck, but hard neck gives you scapes in the spring as well. So that's kind of a pre-crop. So from garlic, when planting it, you can plant it right in the middle of every row, or as a fortress plant around the rows, and that garlic will keep bugs away. It won't shade out anything because it's just like thick blade of grass looking, garlic chive up top or whatever, garlic green, and then you got the scapes, and then you can periodically just harvest these big green pieces off to get that garlic flavor in every dinner. So it's not really a perennial per se. I mean, it can if you just leave it go nuts, but when cultivating it, just plant some every fall, and that's how you get big bunches of garlic in June, July. And then winter wheat, you grow it in every bed because very few things grow in the winter. Around here, greens and salad stuff you can grow too, so you can always throw those in. But as far as that winter wheat, it grows up and come in the spring. You chop the winter wheat before it seeds, and now you got a mulch that you can plant in, adding organic matter to your soil, which improves your soil quality. So that's another thing you can do. And then tulips, when grown commercially, are grown right next to each other. Boom, 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 no space. And then you cut them, and then you dig out the tulips. And, next, when they grow commercially, they just do that investment every year. There are some cities that have, Holland, Michigan is one, a big tulip dig out event. But that's a great, they grow over the winter. And by Mother's Day, generally, you got tulips. So it's a good way to use your space, dig them out, maybe put them as landscaping elsewhere. But it's a good way, again, to keep your soil active. Living soil. You want things growing in it. You want it mulched so it retains water. You want increased organic matter so it retains water, particularly in the coming years. So that's what I'm going to be planting here this winter, primarily of those things. But then I'm also going to be growing these beds so that they kind of taper up as they get further from the center, again, to add that 3D feel of a sun coming out of the ground, and or a moon, depending on the time of day. Now, you'll see I've also started a trench here. I'm going to be calling the dig people to come by and do a proper assessment. But I have a lot of experience with this stuff, and I'm really just scraping away the layers, not really digging. And I'm not going deep. This is as deep as I'm going to go. But I'm going to go deep enough and dig these just as deep to flip over and build these beds, which, just gets all that grass composting and gets everything really working. And this rain, of course, makes it easier to dig and is beginning to rejuvenate the soil. So one thing I'm going to do here when I dig out all these paths is at an incline, and we're going to do basically like EPDM, the black plastic stuff, and create drainage. And down here at the bottom, I want to have like a reservoir that we can have like a solar pump on that then cycles the water back up. So it's going to be designed to, beneath kind of pea gravel or gravel walking, these trenches and aqueducts that catch the rain, go to a barrel, and go back up and keep watering so that the water just stays right here. Again, a lot of work at the start, but when it's done, I mean, there will be, everybody's space around here that don't do things like this are going to have brown grass when we have a lush garden with minimal, very minimal watering. So that's really what's happening here. And again, this is just repurposing raw materials you can access for free, and you're putting in your labor. Even if it's 5-6 hours a week, do it. Gardening is kind of like double dutch. You're jumping into what Mother Nature's got going on and integrating yourself in there instead of tilling, destroying that soil, thereby causing new inputs every year. You got to keep fertilizing. When we garden, it does not, and also no pesticides, don't need to. When your kale and your greens and your plants are growing so healthy, so robust, the aphids and all these predators don't really get in there. And if they do, well, it's not too long until some beneficials come along and go, num, 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 I'm gonna have me some of that. Classic example being tomato worms with those little white eggy things on the back. If you ever see that, let that tomato worm be, because that's a parasitic wasp that's like, oh, hey, and they're trying to get entrenched into your garden in a good way. And they keep those, they're basically taking over that body, and they keep those tomato worms at bay. So don't throw those out of your garden. Go, oh, wait, that one's got the white eggy things. We're gonna leave that guy in there. Yes, gardening has all kinds of little tiny qualifiers and exceptions, and except of this time do this way, and when the moon is this and that, but those all only make a difference of maybe 80 to 100% yield, possible yield. So I have a good friend who's been ag a long time, and he says, if I get 80% my expected yield for the year, I consider it a good year. That's like getting a B. Great. You know what I mean? So that's it. Be good, be fruitful. All we need is right here. Remember, the grass isn't encroaching on the sidewalk. The sidewalk's encroaching on the grass.